everybody? Welcome back to the Japanaholic podcast, the one-man podcast surrounded by topics all about Japan, anime, and games, discussed by one certified Japanaholic. I am your host, Taylor Frey. And today, I actually have an email from the JapanholicPC@gmail.com email where you can submit your questions, comments, stories, or anything else that I could possibly give off in a podcast episode. I actually got one that I decided to read off and dedicate an entire episode on. Okay, from Pete from the UK, which is pretty cool. All right, I've noticed this lately that a lot of my viewers have lately been coming from all over the world, not just from the United States, which I find incredibly awesome. And I can't appreciate my worldwide audience enough. But Pete from the UK, which maybe Pete Donaldson. Please be Pete Donaldson. But Pete says, Taylor, you've talked a lot about animes and stuff like that, but I haven't heard you talk much about mangas. But more specifically, mangas that don't have an anime adaptation. What are some mangas that you've been reading that you think needs to get an anime adaptation? Good question. There's an episode where me and Alex talk for like many minutes about like some mangas that need to get adapted and stuff like that, but we only briefly talked about it in the I think it was the Aniplex episode. I would assume I remember that, but I don't think I do remember it exactly. And maybe the Aniplex episode where we randomly talk about a few mangas and stuff like that that we think should get adapted. I do have a few that I've been reading lately that do need an anime adaptation, and some of them may be spin-offs from series that already have an anime adaptation, or some of them may just not have any adaptation at all, or maybe some of them have no hope of getting an anime adaptation in the next few years. But if I were to pick a few a few mangas to pick from, well, this episode I'm going to be listing off a few that I think should be given an anime adaptation by somebody. I don't care what studio, as long as it's not Dio Media. But before we can get into this list here, kind of podcast episode, like I did last week, with me recommending a bunch of animes and stuff like that to people who probably haven't seen enough anime to become an anime otaku, or if you're recommending them to somebody who has not seen anime, which if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and check out that podcast episode because that one was a blast to record. I'd like to quickly say before I get into this, if you could quickly hit the follow button and click the like button, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And like I said earlier, if you want to be featured on an episode, maybe get an entire episode dedicated to your question or comment or story, possibly leave it down in the comments in the YouTube video, or even possibly hit me up on the email, which I gave off not too long ago. So without further ado, let's get into a few mangas that I think need to be adapted really soon. Most of these mangas I'm going to be talking about here may not be the most popular mangas that a lot of people have read, so maybe that's why it just hasn't gotten the news that it's going to be adapted yet, because a lot of these are very unknown to a lot of people. So I may be introducing to you listener possibly a manga or two that you've never seen of or never heard of, and I would recommend reading all of these, by the way. I mean, obviously, if I'm wanting to have them into an anime adaptation. First one here, I've actually talked a little bit about on my Twitter, which is at the Japanaholic1. I talked a lot about this one, and I've shown a lot of pictures of me reading it, and a lot of the good stuff that comes from reading the Fetchy Puro Our Innocent Love series. The one thing is that first one is just so unknown to me. I've never really heard of a series called Fetchy Puro, which I may be saying it completely wrong, and I apologize if I do. Fetchy Puro Our Innocent Love. This series is a wholesome romance manga that does have its drama moments, but since it's so wholesome, it's not like a very dramatic manga, at least not right now. It may get later down the line once chapters become more and more updated and stuff like that. But I cannot stress this enough how much I need to have this anime adaptation because oh my god, it's so I really enjoy this series. And the weird thing is it's not the only manga that I've read where there's a character, or in this case a bunch of characters who have weird fetishes or have weird things going on with them, even though it's very much like just a regular old slice of life manga. So it's not going to be the only one on the list that I'm going to be talking about today. But I just figured it was going to be, if there was ever going to be an anime adaptation of a very good, wholesome romance show, Our Innocent Love needs to have it. I feel like I'm the only one that's read this, and I feel like I'm the only one that wants it to have an anime adaptation. But man, it needs to happen, because I love this series so much. So much. Okay. So, outside of that, I want to talk about a manga series I know will not get an anime adaptation or even like a short OVA adaptation because it's not really published anywhere. The only way many The only way many anime adaptations happen is if the source material usually comes from like a Shonen Jump magazine or a Shoujo Jump magazine or a magazine of some sort that gets sold to like anywhere. That it's kind of difficult to have a series that's being like self-published or not so much serialized to be adapted. So there's a few of them that it's just like they're like mangas for fun. But if I were to make anime adaptations out of like literally anything, I would have chosen, especially this upcoming one that I'm going to be talking about here, which has a very fucking weird title. Okay. And trying to describe this series to people who have not read this series is the hardest thing for me to do because it's so fucking weird. But the title is, let me start by saying, quote, "A boy who loves gender swap, gets gender swap, and lives his ideal life." End quote. Now then, first off, what the fuck's this title? It's not the only, I'm going to say this right now, it's not the only one in my manga list that has a really fucked up title, okay? Because there's also several others that I've read that have just the weirdest titles, but the stories are really good. And this one is included. I can't describe how weird this series is to anybody who has not read it without getting into like spoilers or something like that. So I'll leave it at just know that this series exists. I recommend reading it. And I really recommend an anime adaptation of this just so I can laugh my ass off because it is weird but hilarious and wholesome. I say that with a question mark because it is a little weird. Mostly weird. But yes. I'm going to move away from unknowns for the next three, actually. For the next three that I'm going to talk about. Because these next three, I really cannot believe that there's not an anime adaptation. Especially to this next one I'm going to be talking about here. If we are talking anime adaptations that need to happen to a manga series that is so unbelievably popular, if we are talking about mangas that are even being publicized in English as a paperback that have yet to get even an anime adaptation announcement, where the living hell is our Call Me Can't Communicate anime adaptation? Where the hell is this? Where is this? Where? I need it. We need it. We need it. Us Call Me stands need this. Okay? We've been waiting. We need this. Okay? I have the first 3 volumes in my hand right now if you aren't watching the video right now. And oh my god. Where is this adaptation? Because this manga series is by far the most popular manga series to not have any sort of anime announcement news, okay? We get the Please Don't Bully Me Nagatoro anime adaptation. Not too long away. Not too far away. We have the Master Teaser Takachi-san series, which needs a season 3, by the way. But we have that series. Then we have the currently airing Uzaki-chan series. The Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out series. Which I was thinking about making an entire episode on just because of the fact that this fucking character still gets a lot of fucking hate. For no reason, might I add. Just because she has big fucking boobs, I guess. People are going to complain about that, but it is the anime community, so I'm not surprised by anything. Congratulations. But I'm holding off on making that episode just because of the fact that it has slowed down quite a bit. But just know I'm not too happy with the anime community when it comes to Uzaki-chan. But continuing on with Komi-chan, how the flippin' hell do we not have an anime adaptation announcement yet that this thing is going to be happening? Okay, I would have thought, considering the fact that we're getting, volumes published, I think we're up to like the 5th or 6th by, the time this is uploaded, of our physical copies, okay, being sold in America. You would think that there would be an anime adaptation, at least an announcement made that this was going to get adapted, but there's none. And I say this because Domestic Nakanajo got an anime adaptation, okay? And there's not a single paperback published of the manga in English yet. I still think there may be one coming soon, but I'm not holding my breath yet. I mean, if I am, it is because I'm starting to get a little hungry from recording for so long already. So that one is the most. Call Me Can't Communicate needs to happen soon. I mean, it needs to happen considering it's so popular and you have so many volumes and so many chapters of source material. There's almost a reason. There's no reason actually not to have an anime adaptation at least announced. Okay, a lot of the mangas that I've been wanting to get adapted for the longest time are finally getting adapted. Okay, like the Please Don't Bully Me Nagatoro series, which I've already said before in a different podcast episode, that I'm happy that that's getting fucking adapted. Okay, and as well as a manga series that still to this day really doesn't have much news going on about it, other than Project 9 Studio Project 9 is creating it. The I Shaved and Brought a High School Girl Home, which is a weird fucking title for a light novel, but I fucking love this manga. I fucking love it. Okay, it does have a manga adaptation that I've been reading. It's fucking amazing. It's so good. The next one here that I've been reading that needs an adaptation, which I don't think is getting an adaptation anytime soon, because I'm trying to figure out exactly how to describe this series, because it's a little different from the other mangas that I've read, because when the last few that I've talked about all have to deal with like slice of life or comedy, wholesome show or mangas, I screwed up trying to say the word manga 3 times. Yay me, yay English. But it's different from what I've been reading for the past like few weeks or months, okay? I'm talking about The Last Human. This one, Last Human, is definitely very popular on like manga sites, okay? I don't know exactly how to describe this other than it is a very, very fantasy, very Walking Dead-ish kind of series. I say Walking Dead-ish because it does have to deal with like a lot of like zombies. Not really maybe zombies? I don't know. A lot of undead, a lot of like murder, blood, and stuff that I haven't. You would think I would not be a big fan of reading, but it's really good. Like, I haven't read much of it. Like, I've read like maybe the first like couple couple volumes of it. If it really has any volumes, I'll be honest. But it's a really good show. It will be a real good show if it was adapted. But I don't think it has an adaptation because I've seen nothing from it other than the manga. So if it has an adaptation, then it was a very poorly advertised adaptation. Because I would have known if it got an adaptation because I would have found it by then. But I've been so used to talking about animes lately that I want to say recommend watching it. But I recommend reading The Last Human. Now, this next one here that I want to talk about is not so much a series that hasn't had an adaptation already, judging by the fact that it comes from the series of this shirt here, which, if you're not watching the video, it's a K-On! Shirt. But we all need some more K-On! In our life. We all need it. I know we're not going to get it, but would it be cool to get an anime adaptation of K-On! College? I know the spin-off is a very short spin-off manga series, but would it be cool to get an anime adaptation of K-On! College? We get to see our 5 tea time girls in college writing music and, going from there. Okay? Because I don't think I've said this before on this podcast. I think I've said it to a few of my friends, but I feel like a lot of like the K-On!'s music, like what you would hear in the endings, like Don't Stay Lazy and was it Listen and No Thank You, if I remember correctly, which were the EDs of both season 1 and season 2, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to think of all the EDs, but like the one where Mio is mostly like the vocalist, like the main vocalist, and she sounds so mature and like all that sort of stuff. I believe that those are what the K-On! Girls would have made had they've gone into college. And I don't think I'm the only one who thinks this, and I think that may be exactly what but I've never really read into like the whole like songs or whatever, like when they wrote this. Because I know that usually the songs that Yui sings in usually are from like the high school days, whereas Mio is from like college, stuff like that. And, you can obviously tell because of the fact that Yui gets incredibly fucking better at guitar in college. That's what I assume. This is why we need an adaptation of this spinoff in college. Now, since there really isn't too much of the source material of K-On! College, that's why I don't think we're going to be getting it anytime soon, because I don't really think there's going to be much source material of it. And you can't really give an anime studio, especially according to Animations, if we are keeping, the same studios for this one, the ability to create something out of thin air. Because it's hard to recreate the magic that was K-On!, okay? Maybe it isn't that hard, but you get what I'm trying to say. This next series that I want an anime adaptation of, I've actually said before on this podcast. Okay. Where I was talking with Alex, like I said earlier. I truly believe that the Ugami-san Daremoredes manga needs an adaptation because of how hilarious it can be at times, okay? I do actually see it getting an adaptation here in the next few years, possibly 2023 if we're really unlucky, as Ugami-san stands, or whatever you want to call him. If we're very unlucky, we'll probably get it by then. But if we're very lucky, we'll get it by 2022. Keep your fingers crossed, anybody who has read that manga series and wants an adaptation of it, because it is such a good series, and it needs an adaptation in the next few years, obviously. There's a lot of chapters for it, of course. To some extent. Almost 4 volumes, if I remember correctly. If not over 4 volumes by the time this episode's out. I've said a little bit more about this series to anybody who doesn't know this series in that episode with Alex. But this one right here deals with this main male protagonist who has like the ability that whenever somebody touches them, they blurt out their secrets, okay? And this girl really likes him. you can tell what a few situations could come out of this already if you're a big slice of life person, which me. So there's that. That's why I believe that if this was to be adapted, the comedy would be like exceeded in the adaptation than it is in the manga, because the anime adaptation, well, depending on the studio, they could probably like really work with the comedy of this series. That's why I still believe to this day that if this does get an anime adaptation, the anime adaptation may actually be better than the manga adaptation. A lot of people will say mangas are better than animes, and that is true in some cases. I don't see it with this one though, because if it's done correctly and they do it like overboard and they like really help the comedy by like adding in some like sounds or something like that, I'm just saying it could be better than the manga. Who knows? But there is I want to call it a 4-comma manga that I've been reading lately. Not Hattori because that already has an anime adaptation, but it needs a second season. Very much so. But there's a 4-comma manga series that I've been reading lately that really needs it. And this one also falls into that category of like titles that should not be blurted out in the middle of a public square, because if you do, you're going to get some looks of disgust. And to anybody who knows what I'm talking about here with this series, it probably will be deserved. The title is, start quote, "Her elder sister has a crush on her, but she doesn't mind," end quote. Yep, this one is a very Kiss-Sis-like series to where it does have to do with incest, but the parents don't mind. And neither do I when reading this. So, I do really think that this series would be a very good anime adaptation if given the opportunity to be adapted. My only concern about it, though, is the fact that it does have to deal with incest, so it would definitely be put into the category of, man, this is dumpster fire, trash. But I truly, and as much as I've read a bunch of dumpster fire trashes, like Domestic Girlfriend, Citrus, Orimo, and Eramaga Sensei, just to name off the tiniest bit of mangas or animes that I've seen / read, this one I don't put in that category because it actually is pretty comedic and very good. I slapped my microphone again. I'm about to slap myself for slapping my microphone. But there's some parts in this manga where I'm like, I don't know if this will be adapted well because it may not go well with some fans. But I really like this series. And it does, like I said before, it does give off a Kiss-Sis vibe. So that's why I do assume that sometimes it may not be the best thing to adaptate at this time. But then again, it would be amazing to have this kind of thing adapted. I'm just saying. Now, this last one here, because like I said, it's not a very big list of mangas because a lot of mangas that I read are from the adaptations. Usually whenever I watch a show, I watch it, then read it. I usually don't do the opposite, but there's been several different occasions, and today I showcased some that meet that special occasion. This one here is all about a character that is very popular on the Japanese app Line. A lot of people use Line as their main texting / communication way. It's kind of like how our American ways, as you'll come to find out. We have like Facebook or Twitter, or we even use like Discord, but we also have like on our phones like the basic instant messaging app or whatever. Like the iPhones come with SMS messaging with iMessenger, and the Androids do almost the same thing, but I'm not entirely sure what they're all about because I've never had an Android phone in my life. I've only had iPhones. I've had an Android tablet before, but I only had that for like 6 months, and then I broke it because I was like 13 at the time I had it. So I was a fucking retard. Still am, but more of one. But Like I said before, this character is a very popular character from the app line, which has like emojis and stuff like that you can buy online and use them for like emoticons. Because the thing about Japanese people is they love their their emoticons and stuff like that. It's almost impossible to like read something in Japanese that somebody sends you that it doesn't include an emoticon of some kind. And one of the characters got a serialized manga that needs to be adapted, by the way. And it's the Manhara Sojo Kurumi-chan series. And I think I possibly said it right, possibly said it wrong, like I said in several podcast episodes ago. I've been learning Japanese for a year and a half now, almost 2 years actually. And I would be lucky if I said anything right the first time I said anything in Japanese. Just saying, I'm a slow learner. For now, at least. Hopefully, I can change that by 2021 or 2022. Probably won't, knowing me, because I'm stupid. But, anyways. So this character here got her own manga series. And the thing is that it does have a lot of chapters. But each page is a chapter. So when you look at the chapter listings, which is like 150, if I remember correctly, it's 150 pages, which roughly translates to about 4. Hold on, I'm trying to think. Usually chapters sometimes can be about 15 to 20 pages long, sometimes more, so it depends on the writer. You get what I'm trying to say. There's not a whole lot of chapters in general, probably like a little over 20 if we're talking about like realistically thinking of like chapters and stuff like that. So there's not a whole lot of volumes going on. Maybe like very small volumes if that's what they're selling it under. But still, the story behind this Kurumi-chan is very like wholesome and very psycho-ish in a way, because this character, for whatever reason, is very psychotic when it comes to relationships. And if one thing goes bad, her paranoia spikes to like level 50. And I wouldn't really advise reading this at times, because it does get pretty fucking dark for whatever reason. But it's still such a good series. I'd still recommend reading it. And it does need an adaptation, even though I do not know how an adaptation of this would go. So there's that. If I want to predict any like studios or whatever, it's almost impossible for me to predict them, because there's like many different studios and stuff like that. And I was thinking about maybe going over like a few studios in mind that I've been big fans of lately, which I have kind of done before. I forgot what episode it was on, I'll be honest, but I've done a lot of like manga reading in my time, and I've done a lot of anime watching in my time to figure out that if the mangas I just listed off were to get adapted by a specific company, it may bode well for the manga, or it may bode not so well for the manga. Who knows? If I were to take a guess as to what studio each one of these would be adapted under, it depends on the budget. If I really could give like a good budget studio or whatever to each of these mangas or whatever, I basically say the same studios for all of them. So I can't give you a clear guess as to which studios I would predict. For studios that I would want them to be adapted by or whatever. My mind went blank trying to say the sentence. I'm sorry. I would obviously want a high budget one, of course. So like maybe like C Station get like Komi-san. Well, that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? C Station would get the Komi Can't Communicate series. Try to think. Doga Kobo would do really well with the Our Innocent Love, I think. But that's just a few in my mind. I really can't think of much about it. White Fox would definitely have a ball game with Last Human, though. White Fox needs to do Last Human if Last Human does get an anime adaptation. That's what I assume would happen. Okay? That would be amazing. Passione would probably do Ogami Sandare Moredes. That would be another good one. That would be a good one. But I literally can't think of anything else outside of that. So with that, I'll end this podcast episode here. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please share this out with everybody who is, needs to become a fellow Japanaholic. Whether you're listening to this on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, etc., etc., etc. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Japanaholic channel. Follow the Twitter page over at the Japanaholic1. And if you would like to submit in your questions, comments, stories, fuck you, truck outside my house for future podcast episodes, please make sure to hit up the email, which is japanaholicpc@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below in the YouTube video. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching this podcast episode here. I've been Taylor, the Certified Japanaholic. I'll be back same time next week, next Wednesdays and Saturday for the month of August to do it all over again. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. I've been Taylor, the Certified Japanaholic. Signing off. Good night.